Hey guys, welcome to my channel. You're listening to Berst TMD from New Zealand. In this video, I'm going to review 10 years of my writing career and explain some of my stylistic approaches, experiences, and showcase the development of my work. With over 100 pieces, I'm going to give you a highlight of each year, but in saying that, my journey doesn't start from 2007, so depending on how successful this video is, I might do a prequel from 2001 to 2006. Each year has really marked some significant milestones, and all of which I've summarized into a small snapshot and by no means the full story. In 2007, my focus was on painting freight and being up as much as possible. The thought of my name rolling all country was really mouth-watering. A huge motivation was reading the American Freight Train graffiti book and really hearing about the stories and experiences from all the different writers. The signature styles of freights at the time in New Zealand were also known as space runners, and other models included blue curtains and canvases. This, for me, was really a beautiful era because freights back then would really stay up, and they'd also used to have some advertising, so every now and again you'd be able to see the Coca-Cola and Schweppes ads. Stylistically, it was really all about painting wild style, and during that time, my partner in crime, so to speak, was Hazza and all of my boys from G-Bag, and we were pretty active painting and bombing and getting quite up throughout the city and a lot of the stuff on train tracks, so we were really active at that time. And I think especially for myself and Hazza, we were really drawn to the Los Angeles graffiti scene, and for me, I definitely followed sites like 12 Ounce Profit on a daily basis for influence. At the time as well, I also worked at a call center, so this really enabled me to sit down pretty much every shift and make calls, outgoing calls, but most importantly, sketch like crazy to develop my letters. So during this time, sketching was a really critical part to the development of my process. 2008 marks the bridge to better quality and pricing of spray paint. In the initial years of my writing, I used mainly Super Cheap and a brand called Sabotage. Other brands, which were from Europe, would also cost you an arm and a leg, and luckily for us, at the time, Iron Lac finally entered the market here in New Zealand. Iron Lac was great quality, and from a price point, it was the immediate winner. This also led me and other writers across the scene to start using New York fat caps, which I think is quite an important thing to note because the attitude of painting previously was to use skinny caps to conserve paint. From memory, I painted over 200 pieces that year because I could simply paint a lot faster rather than using skinny caps. During this time as well, Slaw and Memos also visited from Australia. Super young writers. I recall meeting Slaw when he was 16, and when he came over here he was only 18, so he was still super young and already really talented. And I recall that he was particularly influential to my work during this year because I know that I appropriated a lot of his fill effects and striped patterns and lowlights. So there were lots of techniques and ways to approaching a piece which I had been influenced from Slaw. I also drew a lot of concepts from MSK. And one thing that they were doing were multicolored pieces, but also each piece had multicolored lettering, and so their process and approach would be that they would finish one letter at a time, and this was some of the stuff that I was observing online. And writers like Arrow, Ewok, Revoke, they were already making incredible process in this direction, so that was definitely a stylistic approach that I took from them. And also towards the end of the year, I began integrating some character work and had my first opportunity to paint with Fat One from TMD for the first time. Not long into 2009, I was invited to join TMD crew. This was a pretty amazing moment because all the writers that inspired me when I first started, I was now in their crew and painting alongside them. I'm glad that they saw some potential in me because it really encouraged me to work hard, improve, and paint more graffiti. Shortly after being put down, I also took my first major trip overseas to Europe and America. Travel at this point was really critical because it really opened my eyes, and I really got the chance to link up with some incredible writers, including the likes of Heavy Artillery and RT Crew from London, and they gave me such incredible hospitality and motivation to become a better style writer upon returning back to Auckland. When I got back to New Zealand, I came back just in time to join a battle which was held out at Chipmunks in South Auckland. This was a pretty hectic day because everybody painted for about 13 hours straight and really attempting to do super full-scale colourful burners. Askew managed to come first place, and on that day, it was actually my birthday, so after he won, he actually gave me all the prizes on the day, so I was pretty stoked after a hard day's work, so big ups to him. 2010 marked the introduction of the Astro Fat Cap and the Rugby World Cup Auckland-wide buff. Integrating the words next level and upper echelon, Askew came up with the word niche, and from painting really slowly with New York fat caps, we started to paint more aggressively, flared, larger, collaboratively, and more colourfully. The Astro really became the tool which changed the game here in New Zealand as far as I'm concerned, and started a great stylistic conversation between ourselves and also the likes of Vans and Soffles from Australia. And I think we produced some interesting graffiti at the time. Not all of the work was successful, but there was definitely some good testing and experimentation that was kind of taking place. During this time as well, the Rugby World Cup also happened. So that literally destroyed and got rid of decades of Auckland graffiti, and it vanished literally in a matter of weeks. So amidst the buff, me and a group of writers managed to secure a shared studio space smack bang in the middle of the city. So I guess as a hub, the property owner was incredibly generous and housed a group of us in a factory that was literally worth millions of dollars, and he gave us freedom to paint a 3-level car park from top to bottom. I can't really express how important this was because for the first time, a lot of us were painting much larger in scale and trying to flex with the Astro. So me and Askew really tried to push our pieces to the next level and rethink the order in which we arranged the layers of colour and shape. We ended up calling the spot Niche Park, and we're fortunate to have the likes of Rhyme, Revoke, Jays, Vans, and a whole bunch of other locals come to paint the spot to make it an Auckland landmark. We managed to stay in the studio space for about 2 to 3 years before it was sold to some property developers for about $54 million. So hopefully that gives you a scale of how big this spot actually was. 2011 marks my small tour around Australia and later to Japan and Taipei and Warlords. After making some incredible stylistic progress with Askew, he vouched for me to become sponsored by Ironlag. This was, and still is, a very pivotal moment in my graffiti career. It meant that I was no longer bound to the limitations of spray paint, and I could paint pretty much as I wanted to. So I now had an endless supply of spray paint at my fingertips, and there really wasn't any more excuses other than to paint, heaps, travel, and make sure I do burners every time. Having traveled through Australia, I also had the opportunity to link with some great writers and build some solid relationships, and one of the most significant relationships was with my boy Fix. From memory, he actually came to New Zealand the year prior, and then I linked with him in Australia the following year, and not long after, we travelled together with Hazza to Japan and Taipei. This was by far the most important stylistic combination of people I had the opportunity to travel with, because each day was single-handedly a gain in style, technique, and refinement of what I was up to. So one of the main spots we painted was in a place called Dogtown. I don't know if that's the official title of the spot, but it was like an abandoned building filled with homeless dogs, and to say the least, I left the spot with over 100 flea bites in one case and ended up flea bombing my suitcase and throwing away all my clothes. So that was a hell of a journey. In 2012, the reoccurring theme was definitely travel, because I felt like it encouraged me to paint more, and the development of my work was really changing quite rapidly. So I made a couple more trips overseas again and visited America and Europe. Unfortunately, I went over during winter time, and for the most part it was freezing cold, so I'm extremely thankful for all the writers that came out and showed me love and made time to link with me, because it was pretty cold. During this time as well, I also noticed that there was a project that was happening called the Exchange Project, which was created by Rhyme. And taking my own interpretation of that, I started painting other writers' names as a tribute, but painting it in my own style. My initial goal was to paint 100 pieces, and in the present day I far exceeded that, but I really like the idea of exchanging styles and learning from others and taking that idea of education. So painting other people's names also gave me an opportunity to flex using other letters, which I don't think all writers are good at, because once writers are put into a space where they have to paint different letters, they're not always good at it. So for me, painting other names and other words gave me a chance to really practice the alphabet. And also, in addition to that, during my time in Europe, I traveled with Serge, and this became the basis of a new partnership for quite some time. Arguably one of the most active writers in New Zealand, him, or at least in Auckland, him and his crew MTS really motivated me to paint more. With that being said, I had one goal in mind when I was with them, and that was really to produce some of the highest quality work that I could make, that hopefully in 10-20 years time to come it would still stand the test of time basically. 2013 was the year of full-blown dedication to painting other writers' names in a style that I would describe as rec level. The concept of rec level was a consequence of two things: going next level and rejecting the premise that graffiti letters had to have funk, flow and swing. My interpretation of that was, what if letters didn't have swing, or at least minimal swing, and instead started to abide by more typographic rules and constraints, because at the time I was always interested in graphic design. Amongst this period was also my attempts at integrating more illustrative content in my pieces, because I was also doing quite a lot of illustrations in the studio. And I guess over the past 5 years, I'd also continued to try evolve my process of painting, which could enable me to paint faster, systematically and more technically. So for the most part, the year was filled with painting in abandoned buildings, lurky sewer spots, redskins, and reasonable back and forth around the North Island, trying to link with some locals out of the town. Towards the end of the year, I hosted a national graffiti battle called Kings of Style, which I still think was important to this day in bringing some of the nation's writers together, especially after the buffing in Auckland. Throughout the year, we also had some other guests from overseas visit, including Mast, Jedi 5, Dem 189, Fex, Kaput and Bolts. 2014 was the year of abstraction and illegible letters. I'm a strong believer in pushing my graffiti to the next level. Having experienced that in 2013, I was really trying to break every possible rule and boundary, but still maintain some of the key fundamentals of writing. I also started introducing some inverted layering, and squiggled line as a new kind of design element or effect, and the concept of inverted pieces was also quite an important feature that was being brought to life by the likes of Weiss from Tad Crew. I know that he was doing some really interesting things when letters were inverting and overlapping over each other. And this year as well, I also had the opportunity to travel to Australia again, where I linked up with my boy Chem5, and this was nothing less than an amazing trip. We went to Sydney and Brisbane, and basically straight after Australia, it was off to another graffiti competition in Tahiti, where luckily I managed to come second place. Once again, met more incredible writers and got the chance to paint graffiti pretty much in a paradise. Not long after that, less than a month actually, the Iron Lac team and I basically went to Dubai and we painted the world's longest graffiti scroll. And from memory, that was 2.24 kilometers long and currently still stands today as a Guinness World Record. That was quite interesting because that really brought together 70 other writers from across the globe, some locals from Dubai as well, and we basically painted stretched canvas which was set up, as hoardings on the beach, and they actually carpeted the beach, and you could tell that there was slave, labor occurring on site because they were pretty much serving the prince's every demand, which was quite interesting. 2015 marks a chapter as what I would consider as potentially my least active year in graffiti writing. I started studying again and began running workshops, that were kind of more focused on graffiti art, and so my priorities had shifted slightly. After a couple of years, the buff was still incredibly strong and maintained a stronghold for grey walls. For me, the scene was really changing as well because the inspiration to put effort into piecing wasn't really worth it anymore, because your piece would just get buffed in a matter of hours and you'd be lucky to get a flick. I guess amongst the busy lifestyle of study, I was also invited to Christchurch to paint at an event hosted by OU called Spectrum. Spectrum basically gave me the opportunity to paint a large-scale mural outdoors, which I would consider as potentially one of my largest walls to date, and do some installation work inside. Later that year, I also went on an Iron Lake trip with Fat One, Askew, Vans, Koss and Dims. We travelled to all the local towns across the North Island, including Hamilton, Tauranga, Hastings and Wellington, and this was really great because this was the first time that we actually travelled as a little group to be able to spread what Iron Lake does and revive the graffiti scene in some way stylistically. And really feeling super inspired from this trip and feeding off each other's energy, I painted what I would potentially consider as some of my best pieces, at least within that year. And before the year was up, I also had the opportunity to go back to Tahiti and enter that graffiti competition again. But unfortunately this time I didn't secure any placing, but nonetheless my boy Fat One managed to take out first place and paint a super burner. 2016 marks the continued shift in priorities to the development of my YouTube channel. In response to the standard of graffiti videos that were being produced over the past couple of years, I hope to offer something new and a bit different. I created the real-time web series, which was aimed to capture the writer's painting in real time, accompanied with verbal conversation in a podcast style format. So far, we've achieved 11 episodes and plan to make more in 2018, so stay tuned. But in painting news, I landed a residency in Taipei and managed to produce some more illustrative focused work and explore the social issues around anti-whaling. So I was really at this time, doing studio work as well and trying to bring a lot of that back to the wall. Coming back to New Zealand, I found that the scene was quite fragmented and that nobody was really kind of driving it, and there were a lot of new generations of writers that were coming up, and very few of them had places to look to improve their graffiti stylistically. So during this period, I'd also become somewhat disinterested in painting burners because of the buff, and really wanted to shift my energy to building the graffiti scene here in New Zealand, which is partially one of the motivations for making this video. It really spawned a period of strictly chrome and black, burning bridges, graffiti jams, graffiti battles, workshops, and a range of YouTube videos as educational resources, hopefully to inject something back into the scene other than just painting. Throughout the year as well, we were fortunate to have some guest writers come visit us here in Auckland, namely Drob and John Kay, so that was really great that they came along. Entering into 2017, most of this year has still been chrome and black with the odd colour burner, but I would say that the most significant trip of the year has to be seawalls. I was invited to Napier earlier on in the year to paint a large-scale mural in the city centre, and also painted a couple of the local bridge spots along the way. One thing that I really noticed this year was pretty much everybody at the event was painting more image-based work and using mostly brushes and rollers. I think most of us know that globally the term street art has also become quite popular, and so while I was there, I really wondered why there was no graffiti and where all the graffiti had actually gone. So that was really an indication to me of the changing in time and context of the New Zealand scene. So if anything, this has been a huge motivation for me to reshape the scene here and plant some new seeds, hopefully through all the pieces that I paint and all the work that I make, and also a lot of these YouTube videos. And so really it's been a wild journey over the past 10 years, and I think another motivation for me actually uploading this video is that I'm always fearful that my hard drive is going to crash, so I'm always trying to upload my content as I go, so that I don't lose any of it. And I guess that really wraps up my 10-year kind of snapshot in my best summary possible, amongst missing out a lot of other stories and experiences and developments. I've tried to keep it short, but definitely let me know which year was your favorite year in the comments below, and is there a style or year that you think that I maybe need to revisit, or something that I've missed, or something I need to come back to, or maybe a writer that I should do a 10-year review on. And if you've managed to stay till the end, Thanks for watching, and I really appreciate all the constant support in the comments and all the messages. It really encourages me to, keep trying to populate this YouTube channel. If you like what you saw, feel free to hit the subscribe button to see more content, and follow me on Instagram at Berst_1.